The night air in the mountains is always special. Thick, soaked with the smell of pine needles and earth, it seems to press on my chest, forcing me to breathe deeper. We, 4 friends, were sitting by the fire, finishing the last tea and telling stories. It seemed like an ordinary hike, but I had a strange feeling from the beginning. The sun went down quickly, and the forest around us was instantly plunged into impenetrable darkness. Only the dancing flames cast bizarre shadows on the trees, turning them into eerie silhouettes. We decided to go to bed so that we could move on early in the morning. I got into the tent last. As I zipped it up, I felt goosebumps run down my spine. It didn't seem to be anything special, just cold, but the feeling of unease never left me. Soon everyone was asleep. I lay with my eyes open, listening to the night sounds of the forest. Crickets, owls, rustling leaves, the usual nighttime concert. But then I heard something else. A quiet, scraping sound. Like someone scratching the bark of a tree. At first I thought it was a raccoon or some other forest animal. But the sound got louder and closer. It sounded like it was coming closer and closer to our tent. I woke up my friend lying next to me. "Do you hear it?" I whispered. He listened and frowned. "There's something," he muttered sleepily. Suddenly the sound stopped. There was an ominous silence. We held our breath, afraid to move. And then there was a bang. A hard, thudding thump on the tent. The tent shook. We jumped up, scared to death. "What was that?" whispered my friend, in a trembling voice. We tried to look outside, but it was too dark. The flashlight was in my backpack, but we were afraid to move. Then there was another bang. And another. Something huge and strong was trying to break through. The tent was snapping at the seams. We screamed for help, but our voices were drowned in the silence of the night. We realized we were alone. Completely alone. Finally, the fabric of the tent failed. A huge hole gaped in front of us. We saw nothing. Nothing but darkness. But we felt there was something there. Something huge, invisible, breathing in our faces. There was a chilling coldness coming from it, penetrating deep into our bones. We screamed and rushed out of the tent. We ran, stumbling over tree roots, clawing at branches. We didn't know what it was, but we knew it wasn't human or animal. It was something else. Something ancient and evil that dwells in these mountains. We ran until dawn, until we were exhausted. When the sun came up, we looked around. Nothing. Just the forest. But we knew it was there. Somewhere close. Watching us. We never hiked those mountains again. To this day, when I hear a quiet, scraping sound at night, I flinch. Because I know that somewhere out there, in the darkness, it's waiting. And one day it will return. The sun rising over the horizon brought no relief. It only illuminated our scratched faces, our trembling hands, and our tattered clothes. We sat on a fallen tree, unable to utter a word. Fear paralyzed us. The first to speak was Andre, the oldest of us. "We have to get out of here," he wheezed, his voice shaking. "As far away as possible." We silently agreed. Gathered the rest of our gear, trying not to look deep into the forest. Every rustle, every shadow seemed a threat to us. We walked fast, almost ran, not stopping until we reached the road. We hitched a ride to the nearest town. There, safe, among people and light, we tried to make sense of what had happened. But the words stuck in our throats. How to explain what we had seen and felt? How to tell of the unseen horror that haunted us in the mountains? We decided to keep silent. Not to tell anyone what had happened. We were afraid that they wouldn't believe us, that they would think we were crazy. But silence didn't bring relief. Nightmares became our constant companions. I often woke up in a cold sweat, hearing the same scraping sound, feeling the chilling breath on my face. I dreamt of a huge, dark figure, indistinct, but radiating inexpressible anger. Several years passed. We moved to different cities, trying to forget about that nightmare. But the mountains wouldn't let us go. They haunted us in our thoughts, in our dreams. One day I came across an article on the internet. It was devoted to local legends and beliefs associated with those mountains. It spoke of ancient spirits dwelling in the forests, of creatures that belonged neither to the world of humans nor to the world of animals. Creatures that feed on fear and despair. The article mentioned the rituals the locals performed to propitiate these spirits. About the sacrifices they made to protect themselves and their families. I read on and realized that we were facing something similar. Something beyond our comprehension. Something that exists outside of time and space. I contacted Andre. He confirmed my fears. He, too, had read about these legends. He, too, felt that we had encountered something ancient and evil. We decided to return. Not to fight, but to try to understand. We wanted to learn more about these spirits, about the rituals the locals performed. We wanted to try to propitiate them so they would leave us alone. We knew it was crazy. That we were risking our lives. But we couldn't live in fear any longer. We had to try to find answers. We went back to those mountains. But this time we weren't alone. We found an old shaman who knew the local legends and beliefs. He agreed to help us. He led us to an ancient shrine hidden deep in the forest. There, among the mossy stones, he performed a ritual. He recited ancient incantations, made sacrifices, asked the spirits for forgiveness. I don't know if it worked. I don't know if the spirits left us alone. But since then, the nightmares have been less frequent. The fear has receded a little. But I know one thing. I'll never forget that night in the mountains. I'll never forget what we saw and felt. And I will always remember that there are things in the world that we can't explain. Things that are best left alone. Things that dwell in the darkness, waiting to be discovered. The shaman's ritual left behind a strange aftertaste. On the one hand, I felt somewhat relieved, as if some of the weight had been lifted from my shoulders. On the other hand, I felt as if we had just opened the door to something much bigger and more dangerous than we had imagined. The shaman, having finished the ritual, looked exhausted and warned us, "You have disturbed the ancient forces. They do not forget. They may return." His words echoed in my head as we left the shrine. The forest seemed even darker and more ominous than before. Every rustle, every shadow made me uneasy. I felt that we were being watched. Invisible eyes followed our every move. We returned to the city, but the feeling of safety did not return. I continued to study the local legends, trying to find any information about the creatures we had encountered. I learned about different kinds of spirits that dwell in the mountains, spirits of the forest, spirits of the water, spirits of the earth. But none of the descriptions matched what we saw. Gradually I came to the conclusion that we had encountered something unique, something not described in any legend. Something that existed long before humans came to these mountains. I began to look for other sources of information. I read books on mythology, on the occult, on the paranormal. I talked to people who were studying these things. And one day I came across a reference to beings called shadow entities. They were ancient, incorporeal creatures that dwelled in places where the line between worlds thinned. They fed on the energy of fear and despair, and could manifest in our world, taking many forms. The description of the shadow entities matched strikingly with what we had seen in the mountains. I realized that we were facing something much more serious than just the spirits of the forest. We were facing an ancient evil that could pose a threat not only to us, but to the entire world. I told Andre about it. He was terrified. He realized we couldn't just let it go. We had to do something. We decided to put together a team. People who believed in the paranormal, who had experience in dealing with it. We found mediums, psychics, abnormal zone researchers. Together we devised a plan. We decided to return to the mountains and try to exorcise the shadow entity. We realized it was very dangerous, but we couldn't let it stay there. We gathered all the necessary equipment, amulets, special devices to detect abnormal activity. We spent several days preparing for the upcoming battle. And here we were again in the mountains. This time there were more of us, and we were better prepared. But fear was still present. It was in the air, permeating every cell in our bodies. We reached the place where our tent was. We could still see the signs of our encounter with the shadow entity. The ground was trampled, the trees broken. We began to perform the ritual. Mediums tried to make contact with the shadow entity to find out its intentions. The psychics were scanning the area to locate its whereabouts. Suddenly, everything around them was plunged into darkness. An icy wind blew. We felt fear gripping us. The shadow entity manifested. It was huge, shapeless, radiating unspeakable anger. It attacked us. A battle began. We used all our knowledge and skill to resist it. We read spells, cast amulets, used special devices. The battle was long and hard. The shadow essence was very powerful. It fed on our fear, and the more we feared, the stronger it became. We didn't give up. We knew that not only our lives were at stake, but perhaps the fate of the entire world. We kept fighting, despite the fear, despite the despair. And at one point, when we were on the verge of defeat, a miracle happened. One of the mediums, a young girl named Anna, was able to make mental contact with the shadow entity. She saw her past, her pain, her suffering. She realized that the shadow essence was not evil in nature. It was only distorted, scarred, devoid of light. Anna tried to convey to the shadow essence her love, her compassion. She showed it that there was another way, that there was hope for healing. And the most incredible thing happened. The shadow essence began to change. Its dark, shapeless mass began to lighten, to take on a clearer shape. It stopped radiating anger. Anna continued to speak to it, to soothe it, to guide it. And gradually the shadow essence turned into a luminous sphere filled with love and peace. The sphere rose into the sky and disappeared. The darkness dissipated. The icy wind subsided. We felt relieved. The battle was over. We stood, exhausted but happy. We had won. We had saved the world. We went back to the city. We told what had happened. We were believed. We were considered heroes. But we didn't feel like heroes. We just felt like people who did what they had to do. We realized that there were many other shadow entities in the world, many other places where the line between worlds was thinning. And we knew that we had to keep fighting. We must keep searching, keep learning, keep helping. We must protect the world from evil. So we formed an organization. We called it the Guardians of Light. We began to train new people, to pass on our knowledge and skills. We started traveling to different parts of the world where abnormal phenomena occurred. We fought with demons, with ghosts, with poltergeists. We helped people suffering from paranormal phenomena. We studied ancient artifacts, we explored abandoned places. We became experts in paranormal phenomena. We began to be invited to television, radio, newspapers. We started writing books, making movies. We became famous. But we never forgot what happened in the mountains. We remembered that night, that fear, that battle. We remembered Anna, who saved the world with her love. We remembered the shaman who helped us understand the ancient legends. We remembered all those who were with us in that moment. We remembered that we are not alone. That there were other people who believed in the paranormal, who were willing to fight evil. And we knew that as long as there were such people, the world would be safe. As long as there were guardians of light, the darkness could not win. We continued on our journey. We went forward, despite the difficulties, despite the dangers. We knew we were doing the right thing. We knew we were guardians of the light. And we would protect the world to the end.